All right, I'm gonna go, guys. All right, make some noise. Let's go. Yeah. All right, everyone, welcome to 2024 Google VetNet Career Week. This is our 4th annual VetNet Career Week, and just look around. This is on a shoestring budget. This is on all volunteer force. So give everyone here a big round of applause. And let's give a big round of applause to our tech team, our production team, our security team, the NFL team. So all the viewers online, you know this is capping the 2nd day of the event. Yesterday we had 15 plus functional panels where we had finance, sales, marketing. Everyone who can watch is going to learn more about functions. Today, we had industry panels from representatives of 50 plus companies across Walmart, 49ers, MLB, talking about what it's like to work in those spaces. And tomorrow, if you tune in, it'll be all about functional, hands-on training and skills development. So I encourage everyone watching virtually, everyone here, to tune in, get some skills. But we're really excited to host Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, and YouTube executive Tara Walpert-Levy to talk a little bit about what the NFL is doing to support veterans, the military community, first responders, et cetera. So with that, I'm going to hand it over and introduce Tara Walpert-Levy and Roger Goodell.
Side, right? Yep.
Thank you.
Got you.
He's honoring my preference for the side, which is so gracious and a great start to our conversation. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Mike, and thank you to all of the organizers. I know what it takes to put this on, and I'm deeply appreciative that you are all doing it on top of everything that you do every day. And candidly, I'm just so honored to be here to be able to host this fireside chat and to be part of Google VetNet Career Week for 2024. So a big welcome to all of our military veterans, all of the partners, all of our service members, and all of the U.S. newcomers from Afghanistan and Ukraine who are tuning in from around the world. I really cannot thank you enough for your bravery, your service, and your commitment. It just means so much. So I am excited to have the commissioner here, the one and only Roger Goodell. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. I think many of you probably know him in his role as commissioner. You may or may not know that he is also a fierce native New Yorker and a huge supporter of all of those in uniform, our active military service members, our veterans, and our first responders. So we're just delighted to have you, and thank you for participating in this.
I'm glad to be here.
It's funny because since we did our deal together for Sunday Ticket, you've been at Google a couple times talking about creators and technology and football, a whole variety of things. But this is different, right? We're going to talk today about service. And I guess I'm curious, first and foremost, I know from all of those day-to-day things that your schedule is a little packed. And yet you carved out time and on our schedule to be here for this. So thank you. And what made this a priority for you?
Well, the military is a priority for us as well as our relationship with Google. But we have an incredible relationship with the military. It goes back decades. I think it's because we have so much in common in values. And we've had just a great relationship. It's part of our Salute to Service, which is one of our tentpole events that we do every year to celebrate the military. And even something at the draft, when we're there, we bring out each one of the services during a period of time, and it's USA for 10 minutes. It's one of the coolest moments.
It is incredible.
So it's just a great relationship, and they've done so much for us, as I hope we've done enough for them, but probably never enough for them.
Well, we're going to dive into that. But before we do, I'm curious, you said shared values. How would you describe those shared values?
Well, I would never compare the military and playing football. We talk about that all the time with our friends in the military. But I realized I had the opportunity to go on a USO tour to Iraq and Afghanistan several years ago, and I realized how much football meant to them.
Yeah.
They'd go out on a mission and they wanted to get back to watch the games.
Yeah.
And, knowing that it meant so much to them was sort of a gift for all of us.
Yeah.
But you also go over to these, and you think you're going over. It was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at that point that asked me to go. And you think you're doing it for the military. Really what you're doing is for yourself. At the end of the day, you come back and you just get an appreciation of what they do. And you saw those values, that commitment, that strength, the resiliency, the discipline, all the things that we think going into making football players really great. But these guys are doing it on a different stage, and a dangerous stage, and one that we could never fathom. And so even getting that close, I realized you aren't as close as what they're going through. And so we have to do what we can to try to help them that way and support them.
I mean, I love that. It gives me chills. I mean, I think it's a different stage, and yet you recognize what you mean to them as well, and that's an incredible gift. You've been seeing some of this up close for a long time because your father was a U.S. congressman and senator, and also in the Navy and in the Air Force in World War II and the Korean War. And by the way, like when they first showed me that part of the brief, I was like, all that?
Not at the same time, but it was close.
Another time we'll talk about what it's like to live up to that. But for today, how did your father's military service affect you and sort of shape some of how you thought about the military and inspire you to potentially look to those who are following in similar footsteps and how you could support?
I think it was that responsibility to service that meant so much to me. My dad was a public servant when he was in Congress. He took that really seriously. It was a point of pride for him, and I think he got that from the military, honestly, because you see the pride that we have in the military, and we used to have in politics. I wish we had more of it, but the reality of it is he always understood how important it was to serve the public in whatever role you are, whether it's in the military or in politics. And I think that was something that was instilled in. I'm one of 5 boys. All 5 of us really believed strongly in. And we had a large family. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was in the military back in 1926.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so we're very proud of that heritage.
I can understand why. That's incredible. Well, and you personally and with the NFL have made such a strong commitment in your own way and organizationally to supporting military veterans and service members and their families. And I saw the Salute to Service campaigns raised over $66 million for part.
Just past 70.
You just passed 70.
Yeah,
Woo!
since you got that.
That's awesome. We saw it here. Yeah, that suggests a very promising curve. But you work with partners like the USO and the Pat Tillman Foundation and others. What are some of the specific programs or initiatives that really stand out to you in terms of how they make a difference to this community?
Well, the one I think that is probably the longest and probably the most meaningful is the USO tours.
Yeah.
It literally started in the 60s. I think we all know enough about the USO tours. That opportunity for us to be able to go and just be able to share our concerns, support, and to be able to talk to them, as well as for them to get to see their heroes. We always bring players and coaches, and it's never a hard ask. When they're asked, they say yes.
I love that.
And so I think that's the biggest one, but I also believe the Salute to Service period, that's when we take the entire weekend, the entire period of time, and we celebrate the military and the support, and our fans do also, which is the biggest part of it. It's not just the NFL, it's all of our fans, which now total somewhere near 210 million people. And so to be able to do that and to be able to share that moment with all our fans so they feel the same way. And that money in large part comes in part from the fans who buy the gear. So we have Salute to Service gear that our players wear, our coaches wear. And then we sell that, and all of that goes into the efforts to support the other programs, which are all meaningful. And we always look to sort of how can we make an impact? And it's always something we try to evolve to. Is there something new that's going on in the military that we need to think about that we didn't think about 5 years or 10 years ago.
I think that's awesome.
And we have great partners. The Bob Woodruff Foundation, as an example, is
that's a great one.
Very helpful to us in sort of helping us funnel the money to the most important initiatives of the military. General Milley was up before he left office, and we spent a lot of time talking about different things that are going on in the military and what could we do to support it. And one of the things he was really focused on was recruiting. So we try to use our platform to help in that context, because fortunately a lot of people watch football that are also end up in the military.
Well, this is another thing that we share. We have spent a lot of time actually with these same organizations trying to work on recruiting, so that's awesome. And I'm curious, because that actually is one of the things that we have seen change a bit over the last 10 years, is just the orientation toward how they recruit and the types of things that they're highlighting as attractive about the military. How, you talked about the evolution of the programs and trying to sort of stay current. How has it changed at all over the last 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I think the tentpole event, we really only do that for 3 or 4. Social justice, salute to service. We also have a cancer. We used to be, it was specifically to breast cancer. We have now expanded it to all cancers because cancer affects so many of us. So that's where that's where the entire league, all 32 teams, the NFL, our partners, all get behind those different tentpole events. And one of the things we've learned in the NFL is how do you use your platform to affect people in a positive way. And we have to use our platform effectively. And we're very careful on the initiatives we take because we want them to be responsive to our fans. Not that our fans would agree with everything we do. They certainly don't. But I think they've learned to appreciate and hopefully learn more about those organizations and how they can help, which is really a big part of the initiative.
It's an amazing use of the platform and the influence.
We hope so.
I really think that it is, and I'm sure this community thinks so too, and so we're all curious. So what's next when you look forward 5 years?
You sound like the rest of us. Because we do, we ask the same question, is, what's next? We've been doing this, is it still hitting the initiatives that we think are so important? We look to our military partners and the military directly. We spend a lot of time talking to the Department of Defense. We have one of our military fellows here, Bill, right over here. So Bill Leisure is our military fellow. We've done that for about 10 years, I think, somewhere near that area. And it's been great because they get to see inside the NFL, but they also get to help shape a lot of these initiatives. And we also have our CFO, who's a veteran also from the Army, Christine Dorfler, who's our... She's not a fellow. She's actually our chief financial officer, so be nice to her, because I am. So. But because we have that kind of perspective, I think it helps us sort of look to see, what is next, what's around that corner. But I think, as the military changes and our challenges as a world and the position of our military and the importance, we're going to be right there with them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I did not realize actually that the connection was that tight. I mean, I was well aware of the organizations you support and the commitment of the NFL, but it's fascinating to hear how sort of deeply embedded they are with your organization to be able to bring that perspective.
And it's more than an initiative. I honestly believe we feel like it's part of who we are.
That's amazing.
And I think our players feel the same connection. When we always try to find something that our clubs which we have 32 clubs, they don't always agree, believe me. That's one of my jobs. But we also have almost 3,000 players that turn over quite a bit in one year. Getting to something they really care deeply about, the military always comes up high on their list.
I love that. Why do you think that is? And are there common hooks, or is it different for everybody?
I think it's different for everyone. Some come from military families.
Yeah.
And quite a few do. I think others just see that same connection to, those values that we talked about before, the discipline and the hard work and teamwork, which you all have to. And actually, we hear the military talk about the mission.
Yeah.
It's the mission. And our teams sort of take that approach. And they think about their mission.
I love
it's
that.
Obviously much different. and much different consequences, but I think they share a lot about that.
That's really interesting.
But teamwork's a big one.
Yep.
And we hear that from the military all the time.
I mean, I can see that, right? The reliance on each other.
And we also share a lot of things in science. I should just add that. We spend a lot of time working for the safety of our players. Concussions would be one. We share everything we do, and some of them we did jointly with the military.
Oh, wow.
General Odierno, who many may remember, who passed away, unfortunately, just a few years ago, was incredible on that initiative. And
wow.
We made sure that everything we did research-wise was shared. And we called it return to the field. In the military, it's return to the field and return to combat. And so we would share all that about when is somebody ready to get back into combat, and making sure that they also don't see that as courageous as these young men and women are, that you really have to be ready for that when you return. And so some of them feel very guilty about not being on the battlefield, as our players do.
Yeah.
But I think both sides have learned, and it's a cultural change for both the NFL and military. It's okay to say you're not all right.
Absolutely. And especially when you have so many teammates who can help carry the ball, pun intended.
Yes, but you still feel that they're my teammate. I want to be out there with them, and the military feels I want to be out there with my troops, and I want to be out there doing what I can to meet the mission.
Of course, 100%.
And so I get that entirely.
I get that too.
It's also, I think, just a cultural change of, if you're not 100%, you're putting yourself and probably
the mission and the team.
And your teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I imagine when you are ready and when you are fully fit, you want to be there for the people who can't do that right now. And so.
Well, you can count on our military, and you can count on our players, because they want to be out there to compete, and our military, that's just ingrained in them. That's who they are. That's why they do what they do.
That's amazing. Well, and it's not perfectly analogous, but as we're sort of playing this out, I realize there's something a little bit analogous also in the sense that many athletes will, after a certain finite period of time, transition into something else, and so do many of our military members. And one of the things that I hear consistently from the work and the people I've been exposed to here is just the challenges of transition.
Sure.
And I guess I'm curious, you've seen a lot of different transitions, probably both from the military into the NFL in some cases, not always, into other places, from your teams and the team members into other things. What advice do you have for this group about mindset, approaching transition, and thinking about how to navigate one successfully?
Well, I think life is all about transitions. I think we all go through different stages, right? And that's a transition. One of the things we do share very closely is when our players retire, they're probably not indifferent to many of the ages of people who retire from the military.
Yeah.
And so how do you make a huge shift in your life and your lifestyle into something you may not think is pertinent to what maybe if you're going from the military to a corporate job, that you're not suited for that job. And I would argue exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
I would argue that what you have experienced, what you have developed through your service to our country, and all those values, and that moment, frankly, you can't get anywhere else. So when you're going for a job and you look at a job, don't worry about the piece of paper necessarily in front of you and what it says. Go in and show the things that you have learned through your service. Because I think you can make a huge difference, whether you have a practical experience in that corporation or whether you don't have this degree. You have a degree that not many people have, and that I think not many people have the courage to do. And so I believe that you should be very proud of who you are and what you can deliver to an organization. That's number one, and I don't think that can be matched. Organizations, on the other side, I think have to do a similar reevaluation, which is don't look at the resume enough.
Yeah.
It's really important to look at the person.
Yeah.
And to listen to the person, listen to the experience, listen to the perspective, so that you can bring people into your organization that are going to really support the culture, develop the culture, represent the things that you want represented. I'd have somebody from the military represent me anytime.
Absolutely.
So, and I asked that question actually of Christine and Bill on the way over here from their standpoint. And the one thing they both brought up is listen.
Yeah.
And I think whether you're on either side of that, is listen and understand, because everyone comes with different experiences. Everyone comes with different challenges. But when I'm looking for somebody, it actually was a factor when we hired Christine. She's only been in the job, she'll probably tell you the number of days. I can tell you it's roughly 15 months. But they have a perspective that's incredibly valuable in the context of what you're trying to achieve as a team. They have that core, I would call it strength.
Yeah.
And it was something that I knew she would come in and take the challenges. She was capable of taking the challenges, but more importantly, she'd help us make us better by the experience she brought.
I mean, I see that too, right? There's something in that strength that you describe, right? Which is a unique set of often leadership experiences, grit, resilience, the ability to get people to follow you.
She's got that, yes.
I mean, I believe it, right? Because I see it so often in the folks who do come to us from the military. And as you say, it's an experience at a young age that most people don't have.
I didn't have it.
I didn't have it either, for sure.
How do you get that, the things that you all go through, you're trained for, that you execute on, how do you get that if you're in business school?
Exactly.
They don't teach that in business school.
Are there, so Christine is clearly an example of success after the military. Are there one or two other examples from your experience that pop to mind that would just serve as other ideas or inspiration for the crowd of folks you've seen move into different roles or different experiences?
Well, our players go through the same thing. And it's interesting because the day of the draft, I meet with whatever it is, 15, 20 kids that are going to be drafted that night. And they're all very anxious, to say the least, because they're there at that day where they're going to find out which team they play for. They worked so hard for it. They're excited.
Yeah.
And I'm, as a commissioner, sitting there listening to them. But at some point, one of the things I talk about is you have one thing in common. Each of you will be a former player. And it won't be that long. And you don't want to hear that on the day you're being drafted and you start. But they need to hear it. And they need to, so we work a lot with our players from the time they come in my case, before they come into the NFL, to understand that you have an incredible platform. You will not be an NFL player for life.
Yeah.
You will actually end your playing career at a very important time in your life to be able to make it an important transition. And that's hard because you're so focused on your NFL career that you sometimes think it's going to last forever, one problem. Two, you're so focused that you don't really want to cheat on it. You want to sort of give it your 100%. Totally understand that.
Yeah.
But you really have to understand the platform. It's one of the reasons we look at the off season. When our season's over, we can't even have the players in our facilities for a period of time.
Oh, interesting.
And part of that is so that they focus on the things outside of football.
I love that.
Some of them do, some of them don't. They don't take advantage of that opportunity. I think that's really a disadvantage, frankly.
I can see that. And I really love that as an organizational thing that you do to try to encourage as many people as possible to do that. Are there other things organizationally that you think you, others should be doing to try to sort of get the most out of the veterans who come to us with this experience?
I think the biggest thing is after the understanding and try to understand who these individuals are and the experience that they have is give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a word that's very important to me is leadership.
Yeah.
Not everybody you hire has leadership qualities.
That's for sure.
I would argue in the military, you have a very significant percentage that have leadership skills that are developed. And I'm a big fan of leadership. I just think it's really important to be able to make the tough decisions under really tough circumstances. You're trained for that, but then you have to live it and you have to do it. And I hope that people in our organization will not only respect that, but also will look to try to learn from one another. And having the military fellows or veterans in our office or at our club level has really been helpful in that sense, because I think we all stand up and salute, no pun intended, we do. And we sort of see it. And we see that those skills come through very quickly.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me in particular. A lot of my experience working with veterans, I've always been incredibly impressed that it must be quite hard to come in. You've had this incredible experience in the military. You've done a lot more than a lot of people who are working in corporate America, some of whom are going to be your manager for some period of time, right? And like with everything else, we have good managers and we have bad managers.
Not at the NFL or Google.
I mean, not us, but
Yeah,
I mean other corporations. Yes. And I guess I'm curious, as it appears to me, the people I've worked with have shined through that experience and with a grace that I don't know that I would have. I'm sure when they go home and they talk about it with their partner or their kids or their friends, it's not always as easy as it looks to me. What advice do you have for folks coming into their first job, just from having to put it all together, right? Because I agree with you completely. There's a ton that veterans are bringing. There's a ton to be proud of. There's a ton that they can lend to these organizations. And how do you think about managing that emotional shift? To your point, it happens in a lot of transitions, but this is a particularly big leap.
It is, but I think it starts with having the confidence that you have incredible attributes, character, experience, wisdom, that nobody else you're competing about with that job has.
Yeah.
You may not have, I'll call it the graduate school or 6 years in a marketing position, but you have something much more unique, something much more powerful than 6 years of being in another corporation. And your ability to adapt and think in difficult circumstances, that would be something I would really want to have on our team.
Yeah.
We call it, we'd love to have the great athletes. We actually have this debate internally about resumes and number of years of experience. I say hogwash. I want the person who has been in the battle, and not necessarily figuratively or in reality, but they know how to compete. They know how to get the best of themselves and those around them, and that are focused on that mission. I'll take those individuals any day.
Absolutely. Well, and so what about, we have some allies here, right, who are not veterans themselves and who don't run the organization. What wisdom do you have for them about how they can support military veterans and their communities?
Give them the opportunity. Listen to them, understand what they bring to the table. And you will want them part of your team, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe some people are a little bit, maybe they're afraid of their leadership abilities, and will that be something that will challenge them? I would argue if you're getting challenged by somebody, it's going to make you better. So I would want that on my team.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of that. I would welcome the opportunity. And again, they have to learn in different circumstances and I'm talking about the military, learn in different and adapt and to grow. And you've done that. And so people in the corporate world might think that they have something you don't have. I would argue, again, you have a lot more than they don't have. And so I would be incredibly confident of that and proud of that.
Absolutely. And I think for folks who want to support them, I think that's another form of listening, right? Which is helping.
And even deeper than listening, understanding.
Yeah.
Because, you can't say a veteran has had the same experience across every individual. I'm sure just like any of us, right? We all have different experiences. Maybe there's some that are very similar, but at the end of the day, everybody has different challenges, and it could be their prior family history, it could be their work experience, military, health issues, whether it's mental or physical. There's all kinds of things that challenge folks, and I think we're getting better at understanding that and helping people work through those issues as corporations as well as society, I hope. But we still have a long ways to go.
For sure.
But our organizations should lead the way. I think any organization that doesn't participate in that is doing a disservice to everybody.
Well, and missing out on an amazing talent pool.
Absolutely.
And as you said, I think, the situations are often, there are some things we all have in common and that certain segments of people have in common. And then there's a lot that's very individual, and paying attention to that, I think, makes it more of a win-win for everyone. I imagine some of the questions are also individual. And so I want to give a chance to the audience to either ask questions here live, or if you're watching virtually, you can submit questions in chat and Mike will voice it over for us. Please.
Thanks for having us. Cliff Colbert, Goldman Sachs. Justin Tuck says hello, Roger.
JT.
We talk about recruiting a lot. I'd like to hear your thoughts on retention. I think that's something we're always trying to do better at Goldman Sachs, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
You want to start? You want me to start?
And I'll be happy to add something.
Okay. So I think this is a critical point, right? Because there's an element of being eager to get amazing talent in the door and diverse talent of all sorts in the door. And then to your point, our job is to make the most of that talent and to help people feel really comfortable and engaged here. There's a number of things that we do to try to ensure that we are retaining the veterans who are fortunate enough to join us. Some of what you're participating in now is part of it, right? Our Veterans ERG is intended to offer a community that has shared experiences, shared tips, shared insights on how to be successful and happy in this environment so that you don't have to sort of start from scratch every time. We also, in the whole, these are going to sound like very business schooly things, so we're always open to new ideas also, but you get what you measure, right? And we look at the folks that we're bringing in the door from the military and how successful they are and how happy they are. And knock on wood, I think our track record there is pretty good. And so we have not seen retention as a huge issue in this particular segment. We have it in other segments. But I'd say the other thing we try to do is match them with individuals who are going to help navigate sort of that first transition, a buddy, if you will, someone sometimes who comes from the same background, sometimes who comes from different, and sometimes both. Because at the end of the day, we find it to all be about all the things that Roger and sounds like partially informed by his team we're talking about in terms of listening, understanding, and then really giving the opportunity for people to shine. And we find typically when we do that, individuals are happy and fulfilled and making a big impact here, and that's why they stay.
Yeah, I think on retention, listen, if you do a great job of recruiting, if you don't do a good job of retention, you failed.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I would add would be that it's really hard in the next generation of kids coming out of school, and I'll call it, I think the data that we see is kids coming out of college now don't stay in the same job. And they normally turn over, the last thing I saw was 6 to 8 times by the time they're 30. Now you're talking to a guy who's had 2 jobs in his life other than the paper boy and the bartender and some of those things. The only 2 career type jobs I had were in the steel industry for less than a year and the NFL. Which leads me to the other side of it, which is, listen, I understand that I have twin girls who are 22. They're just starting in careers in music and another in the environment. I don't know whether they'll stay there, but I put a big price on loyalty. And there's no one more loyal than the military. They're loyal to their country, they're loyal to their mission, and I just think loyalty is something that's understated. We do not, at the NFL, we have less than 10% of our workforce turns over in a year. I'm not including players, of course, in that, but I think that's because we work hard to try to give them the opportunity, appreciate what they do to make us better. But I also say this to our younger, and frankly, any age in their career, you're really responsible for managing your own career. Some people come in and say, well, okay, the HR, they're gonna set my career path. You set your career path, and you have to manage it. You have to constantly be looking at how you move through an organization or move outside of an organization if you're not. And I always like to say, if you're not challenged, you're not learning, and that's probably a time to think differently, whether it's staying within your organization and moving, or whether you move outside the organization. Fortunately, I was challenged throughout the NFL, so I had that. But you have to work on it. Second, you have to be really lucky to have great mentors. I'm a huge person on mentoring. Seek out people who will help you understand better who you are, how you contribute, and what opportunities are out there. I could go on forever on this, but I really feel strongly that as an organization, we have to try to provide that.
Fantastic question. Our chat in the virtual stream is blowing up right now.
Uh-oh, what'd I say?
Renata Thornton has a profound question I wanted to raise to you, Mr. Goodell. I'm a female veteran, but I'm also a proud first-generation immigrant. That's awesome. Have you considered teaching NFL and football, American football, with pros and enthusiasts to immigrants and or internationally? It took me a long time to learn it, and I wish there had been a community to help me learn it sooner. Also, go Bears.
Go Bears!
So international is one of our biggest initiatives. I put second to that is making our game and inviting women into our game. And other people with backgrounds that may not be exposed to football at any point in their career. So I always say invite people in. So Latino audience is another one that we put very high on our list. And when we play games in some of our countries, not our countries, but countries around the globe, some of them have very limited experience with football. But they get that opportunity to be there. And as we play over, the UK was interesting. They didn't know when to cheer. Like if the officials threw a flag, they cheered. Or some other thing happened in a game. You come back and you go to a game in the UK right now, you would have a very difficult time telling whether you were in New Jersey at a Giants or Jets game or whether you were in the UK. And that's true in Germany, and I think it's true. We're playing in Brazil for the first time. So part of around the games is teaching people and giving them the opportunity to understand the game. And our networks talk about, because most of our games are, and most of our fans, I think it's over 90% of our fans have never been to a stadium. So you don't get that experience. So we work with our networks, and technology is helping. Our partners are really helping, where we can have multiple feeds. So if you want to hear somebody explain the game, you can go to this feed. But when you do it with a broad audience, then the hardcore fan says, you're speaking to me like I don't know what I'm talking about. So that you can get a turn-off factor in a lot of different areas. So I think technology is going to help us a lot with that.
I mean, I will add there that I have been amazed by how quickly some of the, in particular, female creators who don't typically do football content, but were part of our partnership, have brought in new audiences. And similarly, as the way you're describing, it's because they're talking about it in a different way that your hardcore audience would not like. And so the dream is someday, like, they all have their own feed, the way that you described by segment. And maybe you will be the creator who targets that particular audience.
Well, everyone gives credit to an entertainer from last year, right? So somebody wants to ask that question. And, she's a huge football fan. Did she bring others that didn't have any exposure to the game into it? Absolutely. And we welcome that. And I read a story from, my wife went to Northwestern. She was a journalism major and went to Medill after she graduated from Northwestern. And I think it was one of their alumni papers. And this individual went to Medill, and then he is now one of the media members of the Taylor Swift tour. And he says, I knew nothing about football when I started. I didn't care about football, but I now love it.
That's awesome.
And so that's what we're trying to do is reach not just our fans, but reach the casual fans and maybe the fans that never had the chance to experience.
Absolutely.
And invite them in. I'll bet that we can entertain you.
No doubt. All right, do we have another question in the room?
Hi. I now work in climate tech, but I'm still a reservist in the Marines supporting our recruiting efforts in the New York City area. And it's been interesting to watch the Marine Corps have to venture into new forms of communication and in order to reach people, right? And this is a perfect setting, right? Because I'm sure when you began your tenure as commissioner, you never imagined hosting NFL games on YouTube. And
I didn't even know what YouTube was then. But yes, it didn't exist.
exactly right.
Right.
So I'm curious how you think about taking the NFL into the new media landscape and new ways to reach people that either didn't exist or you never imagined would be as impactful as they are. And I'd be curious how you think about the risk versus reward of putting your product into a place it hasn't been before. And then, Tara, I'm actually really curious for your perspective on how YouTube has hosted new forms of content that it didn't used to, and how you think about cutting those deals and bringing that type of content onto the platform.
Great.
You want me to go first? Sure. Well, a lot of it for us is trying to look forward and not look backwards. We really try to work to sort of see where are our fans, where are they engaging, what platforms are they using, and be able to put football on each one of those platforms in some fashion, sometimes not games out of the box. We worked with YouTube for years on finding ways to engage our fans, never with our games though. It was in highlights as an example.
Home of highlights.
But as you see these platforms, you know, YouTube was a no-brainer for us because I think they understand those consumers. They understand their platform, and they understood our content to say, this is what we can do. And I think these are the best partnerships, the best marriages. How do two entities or two individuals make something better? Yep. And they have done that for us. So they bring influencers to our game. Do you think I didn't even know what an influencer was, but I've met them through YouTube, and you know, I communicate with some of them regularly, but they bring a different perspective to our game, a different insight on a different platform. That's nothing but good for us. So we like our players want to be influencers now. It's one of the big things we're doing. They all want to go and be influencers, and that's great. So I think you have to, you know, social media in general has changed a lot what we do, but we really believe we need to make our game accessible to the largest number of people around the world. Today, still, in the United States at least, network television still draws probably the biggest audience. I don't think that's going to be forever. And in fact, we see it changing. We put a game on Peacock last year, and you know, that game outdrew the network game the year before, the same time slot, same playoff game. That's going to happen with our great partners at YouTube. They are making it. They have changed our Sunday ticket product in just one short year to be incredible technology, incredible reach, engaging our fans in ways we never expected, and they're just getting started. The technology they bring is going to make us better. So that's what I always look for, is how do you find partners who are going to help you, support you, teach you how to use their platforms. And there's no better platform than this one.
Reminded as you're talking why we're such great partners, because I think the way I would answer your question is almost identical just through the eyes of YouTube to what you just said, which is, in my mind, and this has been true for many years, and I think it's only recently that we've had the breadth and scale of, frankly, infrastructure and reach in order to do it really well, that this is where the world watches video, and we want that to be all video, right? And that there's no platform, well, different definition of platform, but there's no property that has more power and more viewership and more loyalty than the NFL, right? And what we felt strongly about, and we're excited that you did too, was the combination of that existing base and content and league with the creators and range of creators and audiences who we thought could bring something to that. And so when you combine some of the traditional media and our creators who are today's media studios in many cases, right? Combined with sort of an unparalleled consumer viewing experience. You mentioned multi-view, that's I think one example, but there's a lot of others. I think YouTube's goal remains to be the place that everybody wants to watch the things that are most important in their life. And I think that is going to be a continued marriage between the best of the best in what was in traditional media, sports, and entertainment, and the best of what has emerged in new media properties like Mr. Beast and Destroying and Chris London and all of the various creators who support different verticals. So
It's
I'm
funny.
excited.
So why did it take us so long? But really, what's interesting to me, the answer to that question about why it took so long, is you may remember, and YouTube started as, it was user-generated content. They didn't want scripted content. They didn't want, for quite a while, they really didn't look at sports. I think they saw the world evolve too.
For sure.
And they have adapted just like you all do as individuals. So I think, seeing how the world is changing is really at the critical stage. You have to do that, and you have to find the right partners where your interest is aligned.
I love these YouTube sound bites. We got to give a little referral bonus for the question asker there. We had a couple of questions. One is a comment from a U.S. Air Force veteran who said, "This man has his head on right." So take that to the bank. But we have a question from Brendan West. This leads really well into the answers that you guys just provided. Given the NFL's robust technological infrastructure and increasing reliance on cloud services, are there any specific initiatives or partnerships in place to provide job opportunities and training in cloud computing and sales for veterans transitioning to civilian careers? Tomorrow, Brendan West, who asked this question, we have a Google Cloud training skills development session, so you should attend that. But over to you.
From our standpoint, listen, you'd be shocked. We do not have that many employees. The NFL has, they don't tell me the real truth, right, Christine? But somewhere around 1,200 employees. And then every club has probably on average a couple hundred. I personally was rejected 53 times before I got my job at the NFL. The difference between when I did that, which was 1982, was there's so many different ways for you to enter into the world of sports, if that's what you're interested in. Yeah. You don't have to come through the front door, of asking a league, or you can come through our partners that provide incredible technology and opportunities for our fans. There's so many different ways to get into sports today. I'd encourage you to do that because we have limited opportunities. Not that I'm not suggesting you don't try. I would love to have you. But again, low turnover, small staff doesn't create a lot of opportunities, but our partners do. Mm-hmm. And if I will tell you, just for me, my head's on a swivel. Every time I meet somebody that I'm impressed with, that person's in my head, and I'm looking for them. And I remember being rejected 53 times, and I spent every day of my life trying to figure out how to make those people feel sorry they didn't hire me in the first place. But that's what we do, right? And so I just think that making sure you find those opportunities, even if they're limited, find a different way around it. You may not be able to go straight.
That's really good advice.
All right, Harold Buisson, Google. The question I have is, what are the best soft skills do you feel a veteran can promote themselves in terms of transferable from their role in the military to corporate world? And go Giants.
You said Harold, right? Is that right? Harold. I guess I would say leadership. I think we've talked probably about most every one of these. Leadership, discipline, resiliency, the ability to have relationships. I think those are underestimated, and to be able to not only have those relationships, not just in your organization, but outside of the organization, so that you bring that in. Perspective, courage, strength. I would identify every single one of those things with military. and why I think you have so many great soft skills, if you want to call them. I call them great skills. They're in many people unobtainable. I think the military, they are ingrained in you. They are part of why you probably joined, but also what you gathered from your experience. And as I say, I would put that up front. And I wouldn't call them soft skills. I'd say it's one of the great things that you bring to any organization. And you should put it out there with pride and belief that you can make that organization better. We get fans, or I get fans frequently that'll ask me, and I try to meet with a lot of people, even kids that are in school or out of school, because I just get a better understanding of what kids are looking for or different people are looking for. But if someone says to me, I want to work here because I'm a fan, okay, well, you didn't distinguish yourself because we have 210 million of them just in this country. So you have to distinguish yourself of what value you're going to bring to an organization. What are you going to do to make our organization better? That's what I really want, ultimately, for myself. Now, if you're looking for advice or something, I'm happy to offer it. But I think you already have the skills, personally.
I think the one an umbrella, I would put many of the skills that Roger just listed under that I have experienced from the veterans I've worked with is straight up adaptability, right? And we are living in a world that is changing so fast and the roles are changing so fast. And the ability to think out of the box and just get stuff done, even when it turns out that the situation on the ground is different than what you thought it would be, is critical. And that's so much of the training and experience and what's ingrained in folks who come out of the military, because you've had to deal with just getting it done, whatever circumstances are put in your way. And again, courage, persistence, leadership, all of those things, in some ways, to me, one of the biggest advantages that rolls up to in the work world we're currently living in is adaptability.
Yeah. Hey. Vamsi, I'm part of YouTube. Thank you both for your time. I'm curious how, I know the NFL and Google is doing a lot for vets. I'm curious how we empower maybe other companies, other sports leagues to do the same. And go Raiders.
Well, one of the things I'm most proud about is our partners care deeply about this issue, and it's one of the reasons we select them, honestly. YouTube's a great example of it. We were well aware of how much they care and how much they do for the military. Verizon's another company that I think has done great. I did something similar to this with a program that was created at Marriott that unfortunately the CEO passed away, but he became somebody who was a big influence on me, and his widow actually started the program to try to give military veterans an insight into corporate world, somewhat similar to this. I just think if you select your partners who care about the same things you care about, and you use your platform effectively, those are the two most powerful things you could do.
Hi, this is Gigi from YouTube. So go Giants. So I was interested to hear what you were saying about using insights about player safety and sharing them with the military. I was curious, how do you think the NFL can continue to, what are the most important things the NFL can do to continue to promote player safety, and how can it continue to share those insights with the military?
Well, we do it every day because we believe in it. I mean, it's something that's ingrained in us. And it's not just protecting our players. We believe that when we develop these technologies or procedures like return to play, that they're adopted by every sport. I'm a huge believer in sports for our kids. I see things that are going on in other sports at the youth age and maybe even at the professional age. It drives me crazy that they're not doing the things to keep their participants as safe as they can be. But that doesn't stop us. We're going to share it with them. I can't force them. But I see it, and I think specialization of kids, for those who are parents, you see it. I mean, my twin girls, in 6th grade, the coach came and said, you have to play lacrosse year-round if you want to play in high school. And I'm like, that's crazy. I would say the last data I had is 75% of our NFL players play 3 sports. So you can't play really more than 3 sports in high school because there's not enough time in the day. But those sports made them better athletes. They made them better people. They're better they're really better at adapting to the point Tara just made. I just believe, I believe so much in sports because it was the only thing I was good at it when I was younger. I didn't really care about school, bad thing to say, but being honest about it. I really cared about sports. And I believe sports taught me more than anything. And I'd love to share that with the world, and particularly our youth. And I just think we put too much pressure on them. It's not fun anymore. There's a difference between a team sport and an individual sport, and I've done both many times. You learn something from both of them, by the way. And I talked to Olympic athletes about it. What it instills in you is incredibly powerful. And so I'm just a big believer in it.
All right, last question before this audience gets invited to a happy hour. It's on the 4th floor.
We should have started the happy hour before.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Think of the answers you would have gotten.
James, a retired Marine, said he talks about Google AI and Gen AI, specifically the best Gen AI out there called Gemini, if anyone's ever heard of it. What do you think about teams using Gen AI to come up with plays, craft plans, that kind of stuff, strategies on the field in real time?
Well, we don't prevent it in real time. So we control the technology both around the stadium for our teams and in the stadium. But believe me, they are doing it in their own facilities to prepare. They are always looking for a competitive advantage. So technology is one of the greatest things for that. And so there are some old school coaches who I know better. But I think even the old school coaches are sort of saying what technology can teach me, what it can give me to make better decisions. But I think when it comes game time, I think we want to keep that pure. And I think there are too many things that can interfere with that could be negative. Other technology that comes in, sports betting is out there. I want to make sure people understand what they're watching is real. Yeah. It's happening, it's not under influence of anything else. And I also think just like you all have to make decisions on a daily basis when you're on a mission. If you're in the military, or if you're in a corporation, you have to understand, adapt, and make the best decision. And then sometimes under really difficult circumstances. And that's, again, why I put the military at the top of my list. You don't have any more difficult circumstances than many of you face. And the ability to make those decisions in that kind of pressure, that's the person I want on my team.
I love that. All right. These guys, we're in the middle of their 3-day sojourn.
Yeah, is that how you do it? You move right to a happy hour and then take them back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Then we use some Gen AI. I think I can guess, having heard the recurring theme, but now we'll see if I've listened well enough. They've got a whole nother day tomorrow. So next week, they'll have had multiple happy hours. They've had tons of content. They've lost their notes. What's the one thing you want them to remember from this session?
I don't, people try to put everything into one thing. I hope you take away one thing. It may be different for each one of you. There might be something that resonated with you. But the fact that you're sitting here, the fact that you're going through this program, the fact that you're taking advantage of the opportunity to learn, I think that's extraordinary. So to me, keep learning, keep challenging yourself, find a way to keep improving, and believe in yourself.
I love that. And that last piece is what I heard you say over and over and over.
What's that?
To have the confidence, right, in what you bring to the table. And that we as organizations should have the confidence and the thoughtfulness to give that opportunity to showcase that talent.
Well, we talk about leadership in the context of military, and I think leadership is really getting people to believe in what you believe in, or get them all to believe to some extent that this is the right thing to do. We talk about that internally in our office during COVID. Nobody believed we could play a season, and we didn't miss a single game. We started on time, we ended on time. And it was getting people to believe that we could do that. And I think in the military, that's part of the leadership. You have to believe, all of you have to believe in that mission. And I think that's true with great organizations.
Yeah.
On a corporate standpoint, you got to believe in your technology, or you have to believe in your mission. You have to believe that you can make a difference in the world. And I think each of you can. You just have to find that place, ultimately.
Well, thank you for believing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. This was fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. Have an amazing time at the happy hour and still have enough strength to show up tomorrow and get some more great content. Thank you guys so much.